What up, guys? Let's do a bit of a recap. So last episode, I went over how, after telling my family that my mom's youngest brother sexually abused me as a child, that, they didn't, not my mother and my brothers, but my grandparents, some other uncles and family members just kind of acted basically like nothing happened and were really nonchalant about the information and just wanted to sweep it under the rug and go back to normal and just act like nothing happened really. And my grandparents continued to live their life with my mom's, younger brother, like everything was just copacetic. So that caused a lot of problems for me, issues mentally, emotionally. So I really kind of hit a place in my life where I wasn't doing well emotionally. And, it was just one of those situations where my family didn't respond in the way that I wanted them to, so I kind of self-sabotaged a little bit more. And I was just discouraged with our justice system. I had pressed charges against my uncle because I had found out that my boyfriend's younger sister, her friend, was living in the same house that my uncle had lived in, and I was just beside myself and really had a lot of blame and guilt and shame going on because I thought, my God, did my silence let this person continue to make victims of children and little girls? And so, that really ate me up. And so I pressed charges against my uncle in the last episode. And in the world at that time, there was a lot of stuff going on with Catholic priests molesting younger children and kids. And so the lovely state that I live in of California, I mean, it happened, nationwide, but each state has different laws. So my state did a statute of limitations that made it to where all these Catholic priests got off. So did my uncle. So, and that's kind of where I left off with the last episode. He got out of jail after I pressed charges against him, did not have to register as a sex offender. And then, it was like it never happened. So it was kind of like I went to court and did all of these things just to see my abuser go free. And it really disgruntled me in a lot of ways. So that kind of got me going, same cycle, setback in Shauna's life. So Shauna has to make more setbacks in her life for herself. I was still trying to proceed and get, I had tried to get a job with the state of California when I turned 21. And because I had never pressed charges against my uncle, when they found that out, I was denied employment because I basically let a child molester walk the streets and didn't press charges against him. So, I was having all these ill effects come back and just really put me in a really bad mental state, even more than I already had been. So at this time, I'm still dating Donnie, and things are going well between him and I, but like I said, my issues, he had family stuff going on, and, he's still my brother's best friend to this day, and we found ourselves just kind of drifting apart, and I was really in a very unavailable place, I guess. I wasn't ready for that next step. I wasn't ready to make a commitment and have a family and be that person, and he didn't deserve that. And he, had a child and wanted more, and so did I. So that's kind of, jumping back into what happened after is, you know, we stayed relatively close, but we split, and I eventually started dating someone else, and it was another man, and whatever, everything was cool. So during this time, like, I get a call from the DA, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, you'd have to go back and listen. These episodes are going in a chronological order, so I started from kind of birth to now. I'm basically at the point where I had pressed charges against my uncle. He had got released, and then now the DA calls me and says that they've got some news, and so you know, all ears, baby. So what had happened was the statute of limitations went into place, and because of me moving here in 1990 and him molesting me after 1990, the DA was able to press charges on him for 3 additional counts. So he pled guilty to 6 counts originally. So he did get resentenced for 3 counts. He did get time served from the previous time that he had been sentenced. So he had got time served, but he did get sentenced and put back in prison. So this kind of, you know, obviously doesn't make me excited. These aren't the kind of situations you get excited for, but it did feel like a little bit of justice had been had. And I was grateful for that. So still not talking to my grandparents, still at odds there. Kind of moving on with life though. I'm dating this guy that lives in Bakersfield. I still live in Taft. And it is June of 2003. Fuck, I'm already crying. So Jen had lived up north with her grandma, and she moved home. Actually, she was there visiting. She hadn't even moved back yet, but Jen had moved up to Northern California, lived with her grandma when I got us evicted out of our apartment in Bakersfield. So Jen's little silly Jenny, she had lived up in Santa Rosa for, I don't know, maybe 6 months-ish. And Jen calls and tells me she thinks that she's pregnant. So I'm like, I'm more, you know, the straight shooter, say it like I see it, call it like it is. And so she tells me she thinks she's pregnant. So I'm like, Jen, shut the fuck up. Like, if you think you're pregnant, go find out. I'm like, why are you waiting? Like, what are you waiting for? So I'm like, why do you think you're pregnant? Like, what makes you think you're pregnant? I mean, obviously, other than what happens to get pregnant. But, so I said, I'm like, why do you think you're pregnant? And so at the time, she smoked cigarettes. Sorry, Jen, for busting your balls. So she smoked cigarettes, and she said, because every time I try to smoke a cigarette, it makes me puke. And I'm all, okay, Jen, so that means you're pregnant, right? Fucking, because you're a doctor. And, yeah, okay. So anyway, so I'm like, just go find out. Like, what are you tripping on? Go find out. So, a couple days later, she goes and finds out she is pregnant. Turns out Jen's pregnant. And, yeah, we'll get into that, I guess, a little bit later. But Jen is pregnant. And so, she had came home to visit, kind of tell her family, hang out for a little bit. And, while she was home, it's June, and it's graduation night, and I didn't go to graduation that night. But Jen was staying at my house. I was living with my mom. She was over, stayed the night at my house. And I was already asleep. But my phone's ringing. Jen's like, hey, somebody keeps calling your cell phone. So I get my cell phone and I answer it. And it was a friend. And they're like, hey, did you hear that there was a car accident and it was Justin? And so I'm like, no, like, you know, what happened? Like, not really thinking it's a big deal, just kind of like, what happened, whatever. And they're just like, you know, it happened down on Taft Highway and on Cedar, and they think it's pretty bad, and apparently he's getting airlifted. And so I call a couple other friends, and one of them answered, and I was just like, what's going on? And they're like, we're on our way over there right now. So me and Jennifer jump up and we get in my truck, and I'm getting calls kind of as I'm driving over there, and it's just bad. Like, I'm talking to Courtney, Justin's sister, and she was getting a ride over there. And at this point in my life, like, I had a friend pass away prior to this from cancer, but that was really my only time, like, dealing with death of someone close to me that, like, I loved. And we got to KMC from Taft in like 22 minutes. And I remember driving into the parking lot, and like, all of our friends were there. Like, it was like Taft was there. Like, it was just all of our homies, like, everybody. And so I remember just walking up to the doors at the emergency room, and when I was walking up, Janice and Courtney were walking out. And our friend Chris kind of walked out right in front of him, and he just, the look on his face, and he was just shaking his head, and he just said he was gone. And I just remember looking at Janice and Courtney walking out, and my God, like, Courtney was just in tears. Janice was kind of stoic. And I just walked up to Courtney and gave her a hug, and we're just bawling. And they said that he didn't make it, and he was thrown out of the vehicle, and he had too much trauma to his body, and he was in the helicopter, he was bleeding out, and so it caused him to go into cardiac arrest, and he didn't make it. And so this just completely destroys, like, I just don't even understand it, because Justin was not only one of my best friends at the time, like, he was like a brother to me. He was a coworker. I was friends with his sister. Like, me and his sister lived a couple streets apart. We were a grade apart in school. Like, we were really, really, really good friends. And then, you know, I became friends with Justin. He was younger than me by a couple of years, and like, he was just this exuberant, bright light that was just the sweetest, funniest, most genuine human being. And we had never, like, it was funny, after he had passed away, you know, him and me and his sister and his parents got really, really, really close. And I ended up being in Courtney's wedding, and, you know, they're like my family now. But, like, Courtney commented when he died, like, oh, my friends messed around with my brother. And I said, girl, not me. Never even kissed that dude. We would get drunk and play all these games and like everybody hanging out, do all these things. I'm like, but when me and Justin, like when we would play these stupid drinking games and we would have to kiss or do anything like that everybody else was doing, we couldn't. Like it was like literally kissing my brother. Like we just could not. And so we would laugh and I was like, I ain't that friend. Like no way. And so we just laughed a lot about stuff like that, but that really rocked like my heart for the first time. Like there was no explanation, no, like it made me question so many things because I couldn't understand why someone so good and so young, he was 20 years old and I was 22, and like I didn't understand how someone so young and so good could be taken away for something so trivial and stupid. He didn't have his seatbelt on. Like that was it. If he would have had his seatbelt on, he never would have gotten thrown out of the car and he'd still be here. And it was just like a huge wake-up call of what's important and what is real, and it just broke something inside of me that, you know, Justin and I were really good friends and we got along and we told each other everything, like, and I ain't telling none of you little hoes either. Like, I'd drop him off at girls' houses, or like he would ask me girl advice, or we would talk about like our relationships and just different things and like make fun of each other, and we just had this bond and this relationship. And like me, him, and Chad, we all worked together, we hung out together, partied together, and I don't know, it was the biggest funeral I've ever been to date. Like, that kid brought in all the people, and it just taught me that he touched so many people, and I think that he lived so full and so brightly because he knew that it was going to come to an end at a young age. And it took me a long time to find peace with that, but I truly think that that kid lived the way he lived because he knew that his time was short. And it kind of started me into losing him. It started me into this, what kind of life am I living type situation, you know? Wow, if he can be taken, like, what makes me so fucking special? Nothing, you know? So that was probably the first time a death really stopped me in my tracks. Like, holy shit. So, anyways, freaking, he passes away. It's just completely like, what the fuck? So our whole town, like a bunch of us, all of our friends, would go get different tattoos. He was a Volcom guy. He loved Volcom before Volcom was Volcom, and he had all the things, and that's what he wore and he loved. And like, so we all got different tattoos with like a Volcom stone in it, and that's how we kind of commemorated him. And I'll never forget, like, I wrote this little thing after he passed away, and it was just kind of how I felt about him and what he meant to me as a friend. And I gave it to his parents because I wanted to share it with them, and they asked me to read it at his funeral, and I was like, what? Probably not gonna be able to do that. But I mustered up the courage and I did. And it was so insanely hard and just a way beautiful moment. Like, that brought me close to them and made me feel special. And I still love them Dillinghams. And that, I wish, was the shittiest part of this episode. But it's not. So, I'm still dating Brad during all of this time. And, you know, things are just kind of moving through life. Life's weird. It slows down. It's insane. So Justin dies in June. And then Jennifer gives birth to her son, Trent, in November. And so Jen moved back home from living up north, and we got a house. And I told her, like, I'll help you with the baby. Like, let's get a house. I don't want to live with my mom anymore. You know, cool. So that's what we do. Her parents buy a house. We pay the mortgage. We move in. She has Trent. And cool. Everything's cool. I'm working. I have a full-time job. I have a part-time job. I'm going to college full-time. I'm busier than shit. Just trying to be normal, stay out of trouble, live life. And so my mom, my whole life had been a smoker. Started smoking cigarettes when she was 9, started smoking marijuana when she was 12, and smoked her whole life. So, it is February of 2004, and my mom had been sick, like she's, you know, allergies, and then like bronchitis and laryngitis and, you know, all this shit. She was just like sickly throughout that winter. And I'm just like, what the fuck is going on with you? Like, you're always sick. So I am at work one day, and I used to work for the senior nutrition program. So I was in charge of the Meals on Wheels. We fed over like 300 homebound seniors in the Taft area and the little surrounding towns. And so that was my full-time job. So I'm at work, and my mom calls me at work, and she's like, hey, can you come down to my house? Like, I need to take a shower, and when I get up, I get really dizzy, and I don't want to pass out. So will you come down here while I take a shower? So I'm like, yeah. So I finish up a couple things at work. I go down there, and my mom had like a Jack and Jill bathroom. So that's a bathroom in the middle, 2 bedrooms on either side. And I'm sitting on her couch, and my mom was not, you know, she wasn't modest. She was just like ripping, like there was no modesty there. She's just naked in front of anyone. She didn't care. So, she gets naked, goes to get in the shower. While she's walking through her bedroom to go to the shower, I'm sitting on her couch, and like I can see her. And I'm like, and she's just skinny, and my mom was petite anyways. Like, I'm 5'10", my mom, she was like 5'6", 5'5", so not super short lady, like, you know, but she was pretty petite. And so I'm like, why are you so skinny? And she's just like, I don't know, like, I've been throwing up lately. Like, every time I eat, I can't keep anything down. I'm just throwing up. So my mom's rocking maybe like 125, 130, and I'm like, no way, like, you look unhealthy, skinny, like, too fast, you know? So I said, check it out. And she's like, I've been going to the doctor. They ran all these tests. They've done all these things, like, boo, 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 boo. Nothing's wrong. Whoop, whoop, whoop. And I'm just like, dude, there ain't no way. Like, you've been sick for months. There's no way. Like, you need a different opinion. You need to go to a different doctor. Like, I'm fucking gonna go back to work. I'm gonna do up a couple things. I'm gonna come back, and I'm gonna get you, and I'm gonna take you over to the emergency room because I think you need to fucking see someone else. So she doesn't have insurance at the time. So I go back. I take her over to KMC, which is hospital in Bakersfield. And I get her there and we check her in. And so they start doing all these tests, and they thought like she had something to where maybe she was contagious. So they were running, we're giving them all the testing she's had done in the past, few months or whatever. And so they admit her. She stays in the hospital for a week. And then they send her home. They're like, we're doing all these tests, whatever, do. So they find out, she doesn't have anything contagious or whatever. So I'm like, okay. So I take her home and I take her to my house because she's still super sickly, like not feeling well at all. And just not eating, whatever. So I take her to my house. And they call and they're like, you need to follow up on February. So I take her to the hospital on February 5th. And then they call me, I want to say it was the 13th-ish. And they're like, you need to follow up with this doctor on the 19th. So, okay. So, doctor in Bakersfield. So, 23-year-old Shauna doesn't know shit about shit when it comes to medical. And I don't know that we're meeting with an oncologist. So I take her back to KMC on Thursday. It's a Thursday. And so we go in this room and she's laying there. Doctor comes in and he was super nice. And he's just like, you have stage 4 lung cancer. I don't know what that means. I'm like, thinking scale of 1 to 10. So I'm like, okay, like, what's this mean? You're going to need to start treatment. It's small cell. It's spread. It's metastasized. Don't know what any of that means. I'm just kind of like, what? Like, what? So my mom knows a little bit more about cancer because she's had it before. So he's explaining all of this, and my mom's kind of crying a little bit. And I'm just like standing there like, what does all this shit mean? It's like hitting me like, what? So he's like, my mom tells him to stop saying it in front of me. Like, can you stop, like, in front of her? And the doctor said, why? Who is this? And she said, it's my daughter. And he said, well, she's going to be the one helping you fight for your life, so she needs to know what you're dealing with. And that's when I was like, fight for what? Like, what are we talking about here? And he goes, come here. And so he takes me out into the hall, and he has all these films of my mom's x-rays, and it's of her torso. And so it's like her neck to her pelvis. And it shows all of her organs. And so he said, he puts them all up on the board so it's lit up, and he said, everywhere that's white is cancer. And I said, it's all white. And he said, yeah. If she lives, it'll be a miracle. And I was just like, what? Like, what are you talking about? Like, what? And so, this is on a Thursday. So, I leave there, and I just had to excuse myself. Like, I had to not be around her. I had to not be around doctors. I just walked outside, and I just collapsed in the parking lot. Like, literally, my legs fucking gave out, and I fucking fell on the ground. in between these cars. And the first person I called was Courtney, because Justin had just died 8 months before. And I didn't know how to deal with that. And I didn't know how to fucking process the information I was hearing. Like, I was in shock. And so I called Courtney and told her what happened. And she was just like, you know, it's gonna be okay. And saying all the things you say when you hear fucking terrible news like that. And so I thought, okay, like, so I go back in, I get my mom. And at the time, I have a little S10 pickup, single cab. And so we're driving back to Taft, and I'll never forget fucking where we were. Like, we're on Taft Highway driving through Pumpkin Center. And, like, we were holding hands, and I had my little console down in between my seats, and we're holding hands. And I looked over at her, and I just said, if you knew that this would have been the outcome, would you have still smoked? And she looked me dead in my eye and said yes. And that fucking crushed me, because my whole life I hated that she smoked. I hated that she smoked cigarettes. I hated that she smoked them in our house, in the car. Like, you know, everything. Hated that she smoked weed. Like, just always gave her shit about it. Always talked shit to her about it, you know? And, I mean, she looked me dead in my fucking eye and said, yeah. And that, you know, was another just earth-shattering fucking moment for me. And so we just kind of drive home in silence, and I take her back to my house and Jen's house, and I make her stay with me. I call Audie, you know, of course, I had called him while I was still at the hospital and told him everything, and so he got his stuff together. He came down that weekend. And then my mom, so this was on Thursday that she gets diagnosed, on the 19th of February. And then, like, she just wasn't doing good, wasn't feeling good, just puking. You know, they were supposed to come up with a treatment plan and all this stuff. So, like, my brother's in town, and it's Sunday, and he was going to go back up to Sacramento. Well, she wasn't feeling good. She couldn't breathe. And so she was in a lot of pain. So, like, we take her back to the hospital. So me, Donnie, and Audie, we all go back to the hospital. We take her to the hospital. They admit her. They put a tube in her, like, in between her ribs to pull out the fluid. So she was in so much pain because she had so much fluid on her lungs. So they put that tube in there to pull that fluid out. And so they admitted her. This was on a Sunday. So my brother stays in town because we want to see, like, what they're gonna do, you know. So they keep her. We go back to Taft, and so then Monday comes around, the next day, and we go to Bakersfield, and my mom's awake. You know, she's talking. She's totally lucid, knows what's going on. We're talking about a plan, you know, with the hospital. And they're like, okay, you need to go get her set up for, like, Social Security, and do this, that, and the other. The hospital's telling us, like, all this stuff that we need to do because she's not going to be able to work and whatever. And so we're like, okay. So they give us what we need to be able to, like, go to the Social Security office to do these things. And I was her power of attorney, so I could make all these decisions. So we leave the hospital, and we're headed to go to the Social Security office. Well, we had just been at the hospital with my mom. She wanted a push-up fucking ice cream, so Audie went and got her a push-up ice cream. She ate it, whatever. So my cell phone rings, and it's the hospital, and I answer it, and they're like, you know, is this Shauna Christian? Yes, this is the hospital. You need to come back. Your mom took a turn for the worse. And I'm like, what do you mean it took a turn for the worse? We can't talk about it on the phone. You just need to come back here now. I was just fucking there, and she was just talking. What do you mean? You need to come back here now. Audie, go back to the hospital. So we go back. We get there. They had taken her back to do some kind of scan. Don't really fucking know what happened. She started like panicking. All this fluid was in her lungs, so she was basically drowning. And so we're waiting for the doctor to come down and kind of explain like what happened and what's going on. And this is Monday at like 2:00 in the afternoon. And he comes down and he said, you know, he tells us like basically her body's shutting down and she's got like too much shit going on. Like her lungs are filling with fluid basically almost faster than we can pull it out. We can't keep her pain under control. She's in a very panicked state, so we're sedating her. And we're not gonna start treatment because she's not gonna live through the week. And I literally like that was the absolute fucking worst, hardest thing I'd ever heard in my life. I just was in fucking shock. Like, I was like, what? Like, what did you just fucking say? Like, no. Literally fucking, I was just talking to her like an hour and a half ago. And she was laughing. Like, what the fuck do you mean she's not gonna make it through the week? And they were like, yeah, like, we're not gonna start treatment. We just are gonna set her up with hospice. I was like, what? Like, what? And so then it was like, okay, you're meeting with the hospice people. So my brother and I are waiting for the hospice people. We're chilling. We're just like, don't even know what the fuck is going on. Like, don't know what to say. Don't know what to do. So the rest of the week, so at this point, you know, we're still not talking to my grandparents, not talking to my Uncle Bob. Our family is literally just everywhere and nowhere. We're not talking to any of them. Don't have any idea where Justin's at this time. Justin's off, fucking off. Just cannot, we don't even have a phone number to get in touch with him. So we can't even tell him that our mom is sick. And the last time my mom saw him, he was real good at disappearing, and his first baby mama and him were not doing well, and he was staying with my mom in Taft, and he told my mom he was going to use the payphone to call his ex-wife, and he left and he never came back. He never came back to get his clothes. Nothing. He just left. He was famous for that his whole life. Just fucking bouncing and not letting anybody know where he was going or what he was doing. So we had no way to get in touch with him. So once that news kind of sunk in, the next day I start, you know, calling people. So I call some of my cousins and let them know. And I called my Uncle Bob and I let him know. And I told him, I said, I don't know, because my mom was like, she would wake up, but she would panic every time she would wake up because she literally was drowning. And so they would knock her out because she was trying to rip her tubes out and everything and like get up and go outside because she felt like she was suffocating because she couldn't breathe because she was suffocating. And so it was just constantly knock her out. And so, you know, when she would wake up, we didn't have time to ask her, you know, anything, what she wanted or needed or anything. It was very basic, simple conversations, really quick, like I love yous and things like that. And so, all of her friends were coming through saying goodbye to her. And so I told my uncle, my grandparents were living in Arizona at the time. And I called Bob and I told him, I said, listen, here's what we're working with. And she's not going to live through the week. And I said, so if you want to tell John and Ann to come see her, they need to come now because it's going to happen soon. So he calls them. They're in Arizona. They show up the next day, which is a Wednesday. So this is the 25th of February. So they show up. We don't say anything about anything, like as far as our past, as far as the molestation, the family falling out, none of that. Nothing is brought up. It's just the focus is on my mom. And so we are at the hospital. All my cousins come into town. Everybody's there. My grandmother actually stayed at the hospital the entire time from Wednesday to Friday. So we're just back and forth and just kind of tripping, seeing her, staying at the hospital all day till 10 o'clock at night when visitors had to leave. And, so my grandma gets there. My mom is in bed and doesn't have her glasses on, so she's fucking blinder than a bat, can't see shit, but she knows that I'm there, like, we're talking. And I was standing on her left side and my grandmother was standing on her right side, and my mom and I are talking, and then she looked over and she doesn't say anything because she can't see who it is. And I said, Mom, it's Grandma. And she looked again at her and she just goes, hi. Like, kind of like a little kid. Like, she said hi. And my grandma said hi to her. And then I left because I don't know. I couldn't. And so, anyways, we're standing there, whatever. And then Jen comes to see her. And she was just in a lot of pain. Like, she couldn't get up and walk and do anything. And her body was just hating on her. And so Jen was massaging her. And, like, I was on the left, Jen standing on the right. My grandma was sitting, like, at the foot of the bed. And my mom just sat up and looked straight at me. And she said, I'm gonna die. I'm gonna die soon. And I just said, Mom, don't say that. Please don't say that. And she said, I'm gonna die, and I'm gonna die soon. And I just looked at Jen, because my mom didn't have her glasses on. I looked at Jen and I just kind of did the whole, I can't be here, and I motioned that I had to go, and she nodded her head, yeah, Jen did, and she stayed with her, and I walked out of the room and just fucking did that whole collapse thing again, like, just sat on the floor and fucking cried. But I didn't want to do that in front of her. I didn't want to be scared in front of her, or sad in front of her, or discouraged, because I couldn't imagine the things that she was going through. And so that was the last day that my mom was alive and awake, was on Wednesday, February 25th. And I was able to, say, hey, I love you, and she would say it back. But Wednesday, after we left the hospital, she was just getting worse and worse, and they would just sedate her. So, my family's around, everybody's around, and it's Friday, and she's still there, but she's not coherent anymore. She's not awake anymore. And like the last of my cousins had just gotten into town, and we're all at the hospital and we're hanging out, and Donnie and I weren't dating at the time, but we were still really close, and it was me, Donnie, and my brother, and we were hungry, and everybody had left the hospital, and it was like 9:15 and p.m. and we were all hungry, so like me, Audie, Donnie, we go to Taco Bell right there by the hospital. It's like literally half a block away. We go up there, we get food, and my brother had gotten a divorce, so he wasn't with his wife anymore. He had been dating this other girl, Stephanie, at the time, and we had met her, loved her. He's actually married to her still, and favorite sister in law, and he's on the phone with her. Me and Donnie are eating, and we're talking, and I'm just like, why, I'm like, what is she holding on for? Like, what is, like, why is she fighting still? Why isn't she letting go? Like, why? And that was the first time, like, I let myself feel those feelings, and the first time I let myself speak that. And, he was just like, I don't know, Shauna. And I was just like, I just want her to go. Like, I don't want her to suffer anymore. I don't want her to be in pain. And so we leave. We go back to the hospital. Audie's on the phone still with Stephanie. And so Donnie and I go up. And my grandma was still there, and my cousin Melanie. And we go up, and I walk in a room, and like I walk straight, their bed's off to the left, and there's a guy in there, and my mom's eyes are open, and I got excited. I was like, oh my God, she's awake. And so I was like, she's awake, and my grandma comes like from the left, and she's like, honey, no, she's gone. And like I look over at Melanie, and Melanie's crying, and like I look at my mom, and I'm like, no, her eyes are open, she's awake. And my grandma's like, no, she's gone, and she tried to like hug me or something. And I was like, don't fucking touch me, get the fuck away from me. And I was like, she's not gone, she's awake, her eyes are fucking open. And she just said, no, honey, she's gone. And the guy was in there pronouncing her dead. And I just started screaming. And he left because he knew fucking shit was not okay. So he just left the room. And I just went over, and I just picked her up, and she was so tiny and so fragile and so frail, but I just picked her up, and I hugged her, and I kissed her, and like when I picked her body up, I could feel that she was gone, and that it was just a shell, and she wasn't there anymore. And oh, it was fucking terrible. And I just kissed her goodbye, and I left. I walked out of the fucking room, and because I had been screaming, of course, like we were only gone for 40 minutes. They pronounced her dead at 10:02. And so I walked out, and nurses and doctors and people were coming because I was screaming, and like 2 of her respiratory therapists who she loved, who made her feel really comfortable and safe, like they were right there, and I just hugged them, and I told them thank you for everything you did for her, and for making her feel safe, and making her laugh, and just being there. And Donnie called Audie, man, you need to get up here, because he wasn't up there yet. And I just remember, like, being sitting on the ground in the hospital, and I just remember seeing Audie running down the hall. And I just said, like, I gotta go. We hugged, like, I hugged him, and I just said, I gotta go. Like, I can't be here. I can't fucking be here. I gotta go. And so he said, go, like, I'll deal with it. And so he stayed and dealt with everything that needed to be done at the hospital, and Donnie took me home. And I just remember, like, us getting in his car, and I was just literally shaking uncontrollably. Like, I wasn't even crying anymore. I was just, like, completely in shock. Like, it was the weirdest, most out-of-body experience I've probably ever had in my life, still to this date. And it was just, like, I wasn't even fucking on this planet. And Donnie, you know, like, I'll never forget, he said, you know, she didn't want you to see it. That's why she waited till we left, is because she didn't want you to be there. And she didn't want you to see it. And, like, to this day, like, he'll never know how important those words meant to me at that moment, because it was true. Like, you know, we had all been there, and I think she got her closure, and she got what she needed, and she didn't want Audie or I to see that, because she was very labored in her breathing, and it was just fucking terrible. And so 8 days after my mom was diagnosed with cancer, she was dead. She never even started chemo. She never even had radiation. She never had a chance. She just got fucked. And I mean, those of you that have lost parents, or anyone, like, family, anyone you loved or cared about, like, you know, it's, I can't say it's easier when you have a little bit of a warning, because it's not. But that was one that, like, I still haven't come back from that shit. And if you listen to any of my other fucking episodes, you know that I've been through some shit, but that one, to this day, that's one wound that still hasn't healed. And I didn't realize, like, how much I needed my mom until I was happy. And, you know, I didn't become happy for a long time after that, but I didn't realize how much I needed her, and her presence, and her words, and her support. And, like, people don't understand when I say this, but I've said it since she died, and I'd be fucking molested a fucking million times over and deal with that if I could have her back, and just have her be a part of my life again, and a part of my wife's life and my niece's. Like, my mom never got to be a grandma, and she never got to meet my wife, and she didn't get to go to Audie's wedding, and just, I never knew fucking devastation until that day. And it's still a fucking doozy, as you can tell. But I guess if you're spiritual or a believer or someone that looks for silver linings, I did get my silver lining afterwards, and her leaving me really made me grow up, and it really made me grab life by the balls and kind of go after what I want and start living and being who I want. And after I lost her, I really started going on this like truth trip, and no regrets kind of life, and still definitely making really bad decisions, but getting more control of where I wanted to head and what direction I wanted to head in. And I stopped kind of letting people push me around and letting people shit on me, because one of my biggest protectors was gone, and my safe space was taken from me, and so I had to start creating my own. And I think, it took a few years for me to get there after I lost my mom, but I was able to come to terms with a lot of things, and I was able to live my life and make the decisions that I was never going to go down that road and that path. And I was never gonna have someone like because one of my very best friends was taken from me 8 months later. My mom died, and they were both very, very abrupt, very surprising, and very gut-wrenching. And Justin and my mom both kind of set me free in weird ways. And this is when I guess I started coming to grips with, okay, maybe some of my friendships suck. Maybe I'm not pursuing things in life I want. Maybe I was pursuing things in life other people wanted, things my mom wanted. And I was dating Brad, and so my mom obviously wasn't planning on moving, and my brother and I decided we're going to clean her house out real quick, because she was renting a house. We didn't want to have to pay another month's rent. So we started cleaning her house out. So I go down to Kmart in Taft to get a bunch of like totes and just different things we needed to move shit. I'm on the phone with Brad, and I decide me and Brad aren't going to date anymore, because I'm not liking the vibes I'm feeling. And we don't need details there, but either way, I was like, you know what? I don't know when we're going to hang out, because I buried my mom yesterday and my dog. So not sure when we're going to hang out. So hung up on him. That was pretty much the end of our relationship. We had a couple more conversations, but they were pretty much the same. This isn't going to work. And then my mom, when Donnie was fucking saying goodbye to her, she told him, or he told her, he was sorry that things didn't work out between him and I. So she said, it's okay. It's not over till it's over. Thanks, Mom. Thanks for saying those words on your deathbed. Because guess what I did? I started dating Donnie again. You guys, after my mom died, I went back to what was comfortable and what I thought she wanted. Turns out, shouldn't have done that. But that's neither here nor there. Yeah. So, started dating Donnie again, and then I sure did split up with him because I knew I was doing it just for her, and it was a really bad decision. And so what did I do instead? I started dating Jenna, and we're going to talk about that on the next episode. So, thanks for crying with me. This one was fucked up. I knew it was going to be. But please continue to watch, continue to share, and come along. And I appreciate all of the support. Like, you guys literally are blowing my minds with the support. It has yet to receive anything, in my opinion, that is a setback in any type of way. I have gotten nothing but positivity, actual interest in me reaching out to other folks and doing other things. So I appreciate the constant support that I get from you guys online, in person. This thing is doing so much more than I thought it would, and the message is getting out there, and there's going to be so much more to come, you guys, not just with my story, just with other people's stories. So please share. Go to Spotify, go to podcasts, go to YouTube at No One's Off Limits. Comments, likes, reviews, all of it. Love it all, need it all, and just appreciate your continued support. And I will be back next week. Less crying next week, and I'll chat with you guys soon, and have a good one.